I don't want them to go make some major move at the trade deadline. I don't need a ship all the prospects out, go get some other big name in here, because I like this team. And I think this team has a chance to be special. And I think what makes this team special is its camaraderie. Like, they are a close-knit team. People will rail against Castellanos. Like, Castellanos, whether you like it or not, is one of the main leaders of this team. They love Nick Castellanos in that locker room. Part of the young guys, like the Johan Rojas's, the Brandon Marsh, like, part of what makes them is the camaraderie. And I don't need this big move to go get some name who doesn't have sweat equity as a Philly to potentially screw this up. Could it work? Yeah. But it could also screw this up. Like, I think this team has a really, really special feel to it. The bullpen's great. Like, yesterday, obviously, people just happened to watch like the first game, probably since opening day. The bullpen's phenomenal. Like, Jose Alvarado had a bad day. He has a 1.3 ERA since the first game of the season. Like, do they really need to go get some? We need a closer now. Like, you have Jeff Hoffman, and Ryan Kerkering, Jose Alvarado, Matt Strahm that can close out any single day of the week. So that drives me nuts. Like, they are good with or without some major move, and I don't need them potentially screwing up what is a really close-knit, close baseball team at the deadline.
Well, you're talking about it like a fan. I understand. You've fallen in love with the team. This is a sort of, I think, a blind way to look at it, though. I don't know.
I got eye surgery, Spike.
So you're not blind anymore?
I was very blind.
And now you're not.
And now I'm not blind. Eye test on the rise.
All right. A couple of things based on what you said there. And first of all, I do think they need a major move. I think they need a real bat. They need to add a real bat. I generally agree with you about the bullpen, but I think they need a true bat in there. First of all, from a lineup perspective, and then I'll address what you said about the chemistry of the team. From a lineup perspective, you are looking at an outfield that, as far as hitting goes, is probably one of the 4 or 5 worst in baseball in terms of numbers. And not only that, not only numbers, when you're watching the game, I've said this for weeks and weeks, but the second half of the lineup just feels dead to me. And I can look forward. If you were to ask me, are you confident that in October and potentially November that this lineup won't go completely silent again without adding somebody else? I would tell you I'm not confident about that at all. So I think they need to add a bat. Not only is the outfield sort of questionable from a hitting perspective, Alec Boehm, after starting off on fire, when you look at his monthly production, and the not hitting home runs thing has finally caught up to him. His OPS is near 800 now. His batting average, I think, is below 300. Mm-hmm. You have an outfield that can't hit. Bryson Stott, who, aside from one hot streak earlier in the year, has been hovering in the 240s all year long. I don't know how you can be confident going up against a Dodgers team, a Yankees team, any of the top teams in baseball with the lineup the way it is. So I think they do need to add a major piece. 215-592-9494. Should you leave the Phillies as they are, or do they need a major piece at the deadline? The second thing you said about chemistry.
Yes.
I agree with you that the chemistry is important, but and that the chemistry of this team is good, and they have a good vibe about them. But that is exactly why you can afford to add somebody good. I think the most dangerous teams to add a big piece to or a big personality to are teams that are not sort of like tied together and not together. But a team that is this way, I think you can add a player, and that player will have to adjust to the team's chemistry. The team will not adjust to them. I think about the Bulls adding, Dennis Rodman years ago. And Rodman was a player who could not go to a team that didn't have an established culture because he would wreck it. But when a team does have leadership and established culture, you can add anyone. So I'm not... First of all, I can't even look at baseball and think about who would be so detrimental to the team from a psyche standpoint that he would ruin the chemistry.
Alonso.
And no, Pete Alonso is not a bad chemistry guy. He's not a leader, but he's not a bad chemistry guy. He's a happy-go-lucky goofball who would be fine in the locker room. Look, this year is the year that they have to win the World Series. I'm sorry, like the last 2 years, the runs were fun and they were cute and they were sort of surprising to an extent. Certainly 22 was surprising. 23 even as I don't think based on the regular season they had that anyone was going into the playoffs saying this team's going to win the World Series. However, this year, with those 2 seasons behind them, with the payroll what it is, with the age of the core players what they are, and with the regular season is this sort of regular season, this is sort of you have to do it this year. And I just can't imagine waking up the day after the trade deadline and the Phillies traded for some platoon outfielder who's hitting 257 with 12 home runs or something. We need a real bat. Not tinkering around. They need a real addition.
Well, it's interesting because we can actually use Phillies history when we're talking about deadline acquisitions. What was their big move in 08?
I don't remember.
It was Blanton, and that's all it was. That they just got Joe Blanton. Meanwhile, the Brewers went out and they traded for CeCe, and CeCe was great, and the Phillies slayed the dragon. But in 09, 10, and 11, they made the big move, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter.
Well, but that. I don't think that one necessarily equals the other. Just because you don't add somebody and you win the World Series, or you do and you don't, doesn't mean it was a bad move. You know, I would rather, when they added Hunter Pence, I would still rather have had Hunter Pence than not have Hunter Pence.
But I'm just saying, like, in our Phillies history, the time that they didn't go on was actually the year they won the World Series. And you mentioned the offense and how they worry you, and it really does seem like it keeps you up at night.
It does.
Like is there a drain in your eyes?
Well, I'm sorry. Just if you look at it realistically, and the team has been great and they've been fun to watch, but this whole thing where we're just like, it's going to be.
Do you think the offense is smoke and mirrors?
Well, I'm not counting on a guy hitting 208 once a game coming through in the clutch for us. It's the regular season stuff. That's not postseason stuff.
I think you're looking at it. On a strict, on the paper. That's how this whole offense works. What makes the Phillies offense tick is that every night someone else is stepping up. It's how it works. Like, even when Stott's batting 240, he has the big at bat on Saturday to get a Mundo Sosa up and have a 6-run inning. Like, I don't know how to explain it. I know on paper you look up and down the lineup and it's like, I don't know how they're averaging the most runs in baseball. It's because someone is stepping up each night. And I don't need Dave Dombrowski to go out, make some super big name move and mess up what the chemistry is here. In 2018, he traded for Steve Pearce. Steve Pearce was the World Series MVP that year. That's what I'm talking about. Get the Steve Pearce. We don't need the Pete Alonso, the Luis Robert, the Mike Trout. Like, we don't need those moves. You need the fringe moves. You need that. It's not that kind of year. This team's too special.
They're more than a fringe move away, I think. 215-592-9494. Do the Phillies need a major move at the deadline, or are they just going to ride the vibes like Jack suggests?